right-hander that leads to what is probably the second longest straightaway on the track. The first part, the left-hander, is not very important except to get you positioned for a quick exit through the right-hander and onto that back straight.
No cutesy nicknames here at Lime Rock. That back straight is simply known as the no-name straight, but it leads to a roller coaster-like turn that has a radical change of elevation. Suddenly, you're climbing.
The climbing turn is perhaps one of the most risky parts of the course. You must crest the hill carrying not too much speed because air will get underneath the car and cause the car to become airborne, and there have been some major accidents at this part of the track.
We came uphill, then to the West Bend turn. Now it's downhill to the diving turn.
It's critical to get through this turn very, very quickly. This will count in terms of several seconds on your lap time. So we all try to work on not braking on this hill and just keeping our foot in it, and it's a very exciting experience.
Well, John lets it all out now down the long front straightaway. We'd like to thank Bob Aiken and John Osteen for a fast lap around famous Lime Rock. Brock Yates is with the #1 qualifier, Bill Whittington.
You got a lot of torque. Is that going to be an advantage or a disadvantage for you in this kind of condition?
Well, inherently, the turbocharged car is a little bit better in this type of racing, but we've been running pretty well this morning, and if it dries up just a little bit, we'll be in good shape.
So you're going with a full wet weather tire, full wets though, and you reckon it's going to rain all the way?
It looks like it at this point.
How about the windshield defrosters and all that stuff in the March?
They're not too bad. We're picking up a little air off the radiator in the front to heat the defroster, so we should be in pretty good shape there.
So you're feeling pretty good. Car's running good. You're feeling good. Everything's ready, huh?
Yeah, we're just looking for some points, so if somebody wants to go a little quicker, I think we'll probably just let them go.
Okay, good. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill Whittington. Now let's go to Steve Evans with the second place starter. Randy Lanier.
Any plan between you and Bill for the early going anyway?
No, main plan is just keep it on the track, and I might fall in behind him at the beginning of the start and see how things go after that.
All right, well, keep your powder dry.
Thank you very much.
Well, Steve, at least Randy's got a roof over his head in that March. That's more than these people have got. Here at Lime Rock, it's poured rain all day, and they're plenty soaked, waiting for the start.
Well, in the early morning practice, they got some excitement when Al Holbert took the 962 Porsche off the track. Brock talked to him afterwards.
I'm with Al Holbert, who is a late arrival here at Lime Rock. Practiced on race morning and had a little bit of a problem. Got off the racetrack. Is that right, Al?
I sure did, yeah. I haven't done that for a long time, and it's wet. It was really wet, and I was trying to go harder than I guess we could. The car's not really suited for the wet, the turbo car, and so we've spent the afternoon here trying to get it ready for the race, and it'll be adequate. It won't be right, but it'll be okay.
Well, Al had another racing engagement this weekend and was unable to be here at Lime Rock for qualifying, so he has to start at the back of the pack with that 962 Porsche. He'll have to charge awfully hard early on.
And it's going to be doubly hard for him, Steve, because not only is the racetrack very, very wet, all the cars running rain tires, but as you said earlier, the rooster tails that these ground effects automobiles put up make it really hard to see. They put up a real curtain of water, and it's hard to drive through.
Well, Brock, on a dry racetrack, especially after what we saw at Riverside with Whittington and Lanier, a betting man would have to go with that front row, the Chevrolet-powered Marches. But I wonder if those V8s, as torquey as they are, aren't going to be tricky in the wet.
That's a good question, Steve, but everybody's going to have trouble putting power down. These automobiles all put up about 600, 650 horsepower. We've got a Cosworth Formula One engine, a little bit bigger than the old Formula One engine. We've got the two Porsches. That's Bob Aiken's new 962 there. That's a 650 horsepower turbocharged automobile. So everybody's going to be slipping and sliding around this little racetrack that's so wet right now, Steve.
And alongside the high-technology 962 Porsche of Al Holbert is a bit of nostalgia. The first GTP car ever built, number 74. Brock looked at it earlier.
Well, every racing class has to start someplace, and there always is a pioneer in every racing class, and this automobile is the first Grand Touring prototype ever built. Del, how old is the automobile?
The chassis was built in England in 1976, and we took the original engine out, which was a small English engine, and put a large American Buick V6 in it.
Now, how long have you been running the car, Del?
This is the third year, and Lime Rock is one of our favorite places. It's a short track, and you don't need a lot of top speed, and the emphasis on handling and braking, of which the car does well because it's very light.
Well, good luck, and it's awful good to see the old girl still competing.
All right, we've done real well here at Lime Rock twice. We qualified 4th, finished 5th, and last year we qualified 6th, but we were knocked out in a wreck.
Better luck this year, Del. The cars continue to sort themselves out on the pace lap. The IMSA Lime Rock GTP Challenge is about ready for a soggy start.
This special presentation of American Sports Cavalcade is being brought to you by B.F. Goodrich, makers of TA high-tech radials, and by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately?
Connecticut, where the twin March Chevrolets of Bill Whittington and Randy Lanier bring the field down for the start of this race. Steve Evans.
And they are pacing it, really, Brock, at a snail's pace. I've got to think they hope to catch the Porsches with their turbos down.
Well, they're a lot slower to accelerate than these big Chevrolets as the green flag comes out. And look at Randy Lanier leap out as we see the starter George Ridenauer wave that green flag in just a mass of spray as these guys go by.
And, Brock, you've got to wonder if the IMSA officials are going to let Randy Lanier get away with that. It looked to me like he jumped the start. Officially, it was Whittington who was on the pole, and you can't pass a car till you get to that starting line, as I read the rule book.
Well, you're sure right, but Randy was long gone before he got to the starting line. And right now, as he goes through those S's, he's got that big March Chevrolet out in front and hauling. Look at that. Maybe a 20 or 30 car length lead on his teammate Bill Whittington, who goes by here in second place.
And remember, when I talked to Randy before the race, he said he was going to let Whittington lead it.
Well, that sure isn't the case right now, as Whittington is being challenged by Kemper Miller in another March Chevrolet, and right behind him is Cyril Vandermeer in a March Porsche, Steve. So we've got a whole bunch of Marches. The first 4 cars, in fact, marching.
Well, as an 8-time South African rally champion, Brock, Cyril Vandermeer is certainly used to racing in all kinds of weather conditions.
Well, he's got all he needs today with this rain here at Lime Rock as he puts a move on Kemper Miller down the long front straightaway. Cars are going to hit about 160 miles an hour here. As in the background, Steve, we can see that Randy Lanier slowed down.
Well, Randy Lanier may have known that he was a bad boy here, Brock, as he is dropping back 3 or 4 positions, maybe penalizing himself for that jump start. Let's see what happens.
Well, the current leader there, Bill Whittington, in that beautiful blue and white number 57 March Chevrolet. But, boy, he's got his hands full as Kemper Miller tries to duck inside him as they run through the S's, and right behind him is Vandermeer.
And in 4th place is Randy Lanier, who led the race, and he doesn't appear to have any mechanical problems at all, Brock. I think he was just kind of confused after that whole starting situation and just dropped back intentionally.
Yeah, he just seemed to back out of it as they came down off that big curve onto the front straightaway, and now seems to be running very comfortably back in 4th place, but we'll have to see whether or not he's going to have to go into the pits.
Well, certainly a terrific race up front with the blue and white number 57 Whittington, followed by Kemper Miller, and there's the South African Cyril Vandermeer in the 3rd spot, the Porsche March.
Well, you can see the windshield wipers flapping back and forth across those streamlined windshields, Steve. Remember, Bill Whittington talked about defrosters in these cars. Look at those rooster tails. These automobiles are strictly all-weather cars. They'll run in any kind of rain, sleet, snow, you name it. Right now, they've got a terrific downpour here at Lime Rock, and I'll tell you, that is hard driving.
Some people will tell you, Brock, that the Porsches are really better prepared with defrosters and so forth than some of the other makes. Look at Cyril Vandermeer on the inside, the lighter blue and white Porsche March. He tried Whittington, but couldn't make it work in the S's.
Well, he's gotten himself past Kemper Miller and up into 2nd place, but down that straightaway right there leading up to the uphill corner, it looks as if that superior power of that Chevrolet in Bill Whittington's car is able to take command of the race. But, boy, Vandermeer is coming hard.
You wonder if, Brock, they don't just drop back intentionally a couple of times to just get out of that spray and try to get everything together and set up. Oh, Vandermeer gets a little sideways.
He sure does. This racetrack is just soaked down. There's a lot of standing water on it. The rain is pouring very hard, and coming down off that corner, as you can see, just a rooster tail of water coming out from that ground effects tunnel on that margin.
A little like driving in Niagara Falls if you try to draft too closely.
That's right. Maybe run it through a car wash. Look at this. Randy Lanier into the pits. He has been black flagged. Your speculation about that bad start that he made is right.
Even though he attempted to penalize himself by dropping back to 4th, the IMSA officials brought him in for what the drivers call a stop and go. They said, you can't do that on the start, Randy. You got to stop the car absolutely stone still and take off again. Well, poor Randy Lanier, as if conditions weren't difficult enough with a slick racetrack. pouring down rain. It's a bit bumpy on this course as well. And now Randy has been penalized at least 15 or 16 seconds. So he has really got his work cut out for him. And he started in the front row. Already in the pits is the blue car, the home-built Phoenix machine of John Gunn. The Chevy-powered car is back in the race after a crewman removed something from it. So Gunn goes back out. Brock Yates is down on pit row in John Gunn's pits to find out what happened.
I'm with Peter Flanagan, John Gunn's crew chief. Peter, best laid plans sometimes go awry.
Well, what happened is we were trying to keep the carburetor and the injectors dry, and we put a plastic bag over it before we put the deck on it, and in the rush to get to the grid, we forgot to take it off. So he came in, we pulled it off, and hopefully he'll be able to pull back up there.
Did you know right away what had happened?
After the first lap, as soon as he started to get on it, and it didn't go. So...
Well, it only took a second, but unfortunately in an hour race like this, that's a big penalty.
Yeah, it isn't like a 3-hour race we normally run, so hopefully, you know, he'll be able to do well.
Well, I hope so. Sorry.
Enough. Thank you.
That'll be like driving your own car with the choke stuck. But look at the race we've got for the lead. The blue and white number 57, Bill Whittington, and alongside him making a move on the outside, the lighter blue and white 00 car. Fire out of the turbo. That's a normal situation. That is Cyril Vandermeer. Whittington comes right back again, Brock.
He sure does. What a race. Around this big loop, the turn one here, these cars bouncing off each other. Look like a couple of short track stock cars, Steve, as they wind their way through the S's here at Lime Rock. Good race. Vandermeer seems to have muscled his way through and taken the lead, although Whittington sure isn't going to give up on him. So Cyril Vandermeer, all the way from South Africa with a Porsche-powered March, takes the lead here from Bill Whittington's big, strong Chevrolet. And now let's go to Steve Evans in the pits.
Very interesting start to this Lime Rock GTP race. First of all, the Blue Thunder team, Whittington and Lanier, no doubt intentionally pacing a very slow start so that the turbo cars were not up to boost. Then Lanier, apparently, according to IMSA officials, jumped the start. Looked that way to us, too. They black flagged him, made him do a stop and go here in the pit area as a penalty. Quite interesting.
And a tough break for Randy Lanier, but his teammate, Bill Whittington, at number 57 Blue Thunder March Chevrolet, hangs in there, trying to get the lead back from Cyril Vandermeer. But boy, Steve, Vandermeer is just standing on it down the front straightaway, and now has about a 4-car lead.
Cyril had raced the IMSA competition the last couple of years. This is his first full season, and he served notice that this team was together when they won the 24 Hours of Daytona to start it off right.
And he's shown a lot of muscle here today against a very aggressive Bill Whittington is back in second place. And there in 7th place, Al Hobart. Remember, he started way at the back of the pack. That beautiful new 962 Porsche bent it up a little bit, but now he's in the hunt as we see the leaders come by. Cyril Vandermeer followed very closely by an aggressive Bill Whittington here in an ice rink of a racetrack at Lime Rock, Connecticut. Kemper Miller back in 3rd place. Stay with us as the hunt goes on in the IMSA GTP Challenge. For more IMSA GTP racing, I'm Brock Yates along with Steve Evans. Our pal Ed Bruce way out in sunny California in Riverside as Cyril Vandermeer in the March Porsche continues to lead convincingly in a very heavy rain and a real hard race, Steve, with Bill Whittington back there in 2nd place, not about to give up.
Cyril Vandermeer is truly a national hero in South Africa, Brock. They call him Supervan. When he won Daytona earlier this year, there was really a celebration all across that country.
A lot of racing fans down in South Africa. Big Grand Prix down there every year. Remember, Jody Scheckter won a world championship from South Africa. Bill Whittington, 2nd place in that March Chevrolet. That sister car, now being driven by Randy Lanier here, Steve, won the Riverside race we covered here in American Sports Cavalcade a few months back.
And what a finish it was at Riverside. This man, Al Hobart, now in the number 14 car, was 2nd place, Brock, as I'm sure you recall, by only 5 seconds after 6 hours of racing. The defending IMSA national champion is Al Hobart. He is in 7th spot now, having moved up from as far back as you can go, trying to get 6th spot away from the other 962 Porsche driven by Bob Aiken.
Well, Hobart is about as poised a driver as there is in big league sports car racing, Steve. Has all kinds of experience, has won a lot of titles. Remember, had a few seasons in Grand National racing, and this year tried Indianapolis for the first time in his career.
Well, as Hobart Hobart continues to chase Bob Akins. They both, Brock, just blew by ancient old number 74, Del Russo Taylor. That'll put him a lap down.
Yeah, and here comes Randy Lanier by Del Russo Taylor, so he's back into it. Right behind this man, number 14, Al Hobart, who sweeps through that very fast S's down at the end of the long straightaway. And look at this. What a cluster. John Gunn in the Blue Phoenix down in the inside, being passed first by Bob Bacon, and now Al Hobart's going to try to get by him as they come out of the S's down. But look at this. Pushed down onto the apron, Steve.
And we just saw the nose. There he goes of Randy Lanier's car, who is currently in 8th. So Hobart and Lanier blow by the Phoenix car.
They sure do, but Lanier is right back into it because it looks as if he's going to try to challenge Al Hobart as they head up that very steep hill. That's deceivingly steep as they go over the top. In fact, we've seen the car do some wheel stands as they jump over that thing, like a AA fuel dragster.
Well, Lanier has made up a goodly portion of the seconds that he was penalized by that stop and go in the pits. Does he know it's raining out there, Brock? You're not supposed to be able to go this fast.
Boy, I don't know. He's right tucked in behind Al Hobart as they come down the long straightaway. Let's see if that big 355 cubic inch Chevy can pull that Porsche.
Well, the hot rodders in the crowd got to be rooting for Lanier in this drag race. The purists, no doubt, riding with Al Hobart in just about the newest endurance racing machine in the world, the 962 Porsche.
Well, they couldn't be much different as far as their engines are concerned, Steve. That's a small displacement, single turbo, 6-cylinder on the Porsche, and a big V8 in that number 56 Randy Lanier March.
Well, Lanier has matured as a race car driver just this season. He was so impressive co-driving, as we saw at Riverside, with Bill Whittington to win it. And actually, the Blue Thunder racing team belongs to Lanier, Brock. Whittington drives for him.
I know, but right now, it's Randy playing catch-up as Bill hangs in there right behind this man, Cyril Vandermeer leading, and right behind him in the number 57 team car of Randy Lanier, Bill Whittington. So Vandermeer driving very convincingly, but it's interesting. Once he pushed past Whittington to take the lead, Bill's hung right on behind him. Vandermeer came up in the 3rd starting place, got into the lead, but now hasn't been able to extend it by a whole lot.
Well, amazingly enough, even in the wet, things have settled down a bit here at Lime Rock with Cyril Vandermeer running up front. So let's go out to California and Ed Bruce.
Thanks, fellas. Brock and Steve are in the lush green of Lime Rock, Connecticut, and I'm sitting here with one of the many world-class drivers that have come out of this high desert country of Southern California. This is Jim Busby. Jim, why are you not at Lime Rock?
Well, as you know, we're contesting the World Endurance Championship, and about 90% of those rounds are in Europe. We also race in the Orient and South Africa. We're here at Riverside today testing our car, which we leave in California because the weather conditions are better for testing here. We know that if we come back and test in Riverside, that we'll generally get good weather conditions, and they're consistent. And so we leave our test mule here, and we do a few of the U.S. rounds. Unfortunately, much as I love Lime Rock is not one of them.
We did see you at Riverside earlier in the season, but you have a facility in California, and you have one in England, right?
We have our main workshops, of course, are in Southern California. We've been here for now 13 years. We also have a workshop in Woking, England, which is just south of London. It's convenient to the continent. The language is right for us. And we keep our 2 European cars there and commute back and forth to the continent for the World Championship rounds.
Thanks a lot, Jim, and continued success in that point lead at this time. And let's go back to Lime Rock and Brock and Steve.
Right, Ed, and thanks. Back in the downpour at Lime Rock as the leaders continue to slide their way around this very tight racetrack. Bob Aiken in the 6th place, Porsche 962, only the 2nd race for this automobile, and I think we're going to see more of those automobiles up front, Steve. These Porsches are very effective cars.
Well, Aiken's car got a little twitchy on him right there, and it's no wonder, as slick as it is out there. But running up front, Cyril Vandermeer in the lighter blue and white car, the 00. That is a Porsche, but in a March chassis. Behind him, another March, Bill Whittington running 2nd with a Chevrolet power plant, and they are on deeply treaded tires here in the wet instead of the usual slick, very gummy tires they'd use under dry conditions. Brock had a chance when it was dry and sunny here at Lime Rock to talk to Cyril Vandermeer about his expectations for the car here at Lime Rock in this kind of a sprint race.
A 1-hour sprint race on this racetrack for this racing car. Do you think it's something that you can win with here, or will it require that the 2 Chevys break?
The Chevys normally don't run as fast in the race as they do in practice. I don't think they use the same amount of revs. And we can more or less do the same time, so I think it should be a dice. Who knows who's going to win, but I think we'll be up there.
It's a difficult racetrack to pass on. Really, at the end of the straight is a good place. Do you think that you would like to get into the lead early and try to hold it, or will you lay back for a while and see how the pattern develops?
Well, I think it's like you said, it's easier to be in the front and keep everybody behind you than it is to try and pass somebody.
Well, he certainly got his wish. Cyril Vandemer is running up front in the Porsche-powered March ahead of the Chevy-powered March of Bill Whittington. But he is not extending that lead at all. Whittington staying back just out of the spray and could still possibly strike at any time. A good race going on for the 5th position is car number 71, Whitney Gans, currently running 5th. Bob Akins in the red 962 trying to get him, and Randy Lanier persevering after all of his problems on that ragged start, car number 56 in the 7th spot. Earlier, Brock had a chance to talk to Bob Akins about the newest from Stuttgart, Germany.
Well, I say, Brock, right now that the car's a lot better than I am. This is my first ground effects car, and I'm really 2 years behind the other drivers that have been driving these cars, and I've got a lot of adapting to do. The car's really good, and the driver needs a little bit of a tune-up.
Rather candid conversation. Well, Bob Akins actually looking pretty smooth up there in the number 5 962 Porsche. Randy Lanier, the Chevy-powered March. Randy Lanier tries to move on the inside, just a little too narrow here at Lime Rock to do it.
Sure is, Steve. As we go back to the leaders, Cyril Vandemer in that 00 March Porsche, followed closely by Bill Whittington in his Chevy-powered March as they sweep through the back part of Lime Rock. Kind of tight back there, but now they're going to gather up some speed as they go down this big, challenging right-handed hill and head onto the main straightaway. That's where most of the passing is done here.
Whittington's car does not have the benefit of the turbocharger, but it does have far more cubic inches, and they're starting to pay off right now. Down the straightaway, it's Whittington on the outside. The Chevy-powered car goes into turn 1 ahead of the South African. He's going to give Cyril a car wash for a change. Bill Whittington takes over the lead with sheer horsepower down the main straightaway. Whittington gets plenty of practice anytime he wants. He owns his own racetrack, Road Atlanta, in the beautiful state of Georgia. So Whittington has clear sailing out there now. In fact, it's a lot like sailing on a blustery day as the rain continues to fall here in Lime Rock, Connecticut. Leading it, Bill Whittington over Cyril Vandemer, but that could change at any moment. We'll be back to Lime Rock for more IMSA GTP racing after this.
IMSA GTP challenge from Lime Rock, Connecticut, as their leaders splash their way around this tight little racetrack in northwestern Connecticut. And a hard race it's been so far, Steve.
It has indeed, Brock, and no one is trying any harder than the fellow currently running in the 3rd spot. That's the number 25 Chevy-powered March of Kenfer Miller. Kenfer from Pittsburgh, New York, has no doubt made many laps around this venerable old circuit.
I'm sure he has, and more than a few of them have probably been in the rain because, as you say, eastern racetracks do get their share of rain as opposed to our pal Ed Bruce out there in Riverside, California, where it almost never rains. But look at the old windshield wipers work on that March of Kemper's as he sweeps down into that very fast turn 1 where earlier we saw Bill Whittington put the move on Cyril Vandemer to take the lead.
You watch these cars carefully, Brock, you can see just how rough it is out there. They get to bouncing a bit. The front end wants to hunt around.
It sure does, as we see Whitney Gans in an interesting little automobile, a Buick-powered Argo. That's an English-built chassis with a good old American V6 engine in it. He's currently running in 5th place from out there near your home in Laguna Niguel, California, Steve.
Well, he's being chased right now by Randy Lanier, and he's got to know how hungry Lanier is. And after winning Riverside, Lanier carries some pretty big credentials when you see him in that rearview mirror.
He also carries some big cubic inches. That's a 355 cubic inch engine in that Lanier car, whereas the V6 Buick is quite a bit smaller, but Whitney Gans's car also has a weight advantage. In this kind of racing, Steve, the smaller the engine, the lighter the car, so they tend to balance out. But right now, Randy Lanier is using those cubic inches to just gobble up Whitney Gans.
Randy Lanier just looking for a wide enough spot on the racetrack to get around, and he may have found it here. Lanier trying to dive down below Whitney Gans, and he's got it done. Lanier is going to try to lead him into turn 1, where they brake very hard. They get through cleanly. Randy Lanier just picking them off one by one.
It was a nice move by Randy, and a lot of poise was necessary to get that car brake down from about 160 miles an hour on a very slick racetrack. You ought to try that sometime in your rainy driveway, Steve. You see how hard it is.
I'm getting a feeling for how hard it is right now, Brock. Randy Lanier now in the 5th spot. Only 4 cars between he and his partner, Bill Whittington, who's running up front.
So we may see the 2 Blue Thunder marches run a 1-2 just like they started if Randy Lanier keeps going the way he is, as we see Whitney Gans in that little Argo Buick fall back, unfortunately, a victim of just sheer cubic inches. Here are the 2 Porsches, the 962 of Al Hobart back there in 8th place. Just in front of him, Bob Aiken's sister car, the red one. These 2 automobiles really not sorted out and not at their best advantage on this particular kind of a racetrack. The turbo cars not quite as happy, I don't think, Steve. They got a little lag, you know, when the turbo comes in and out and all that boost comes on and all that power comes. And the Porsches are just kind of down on power. But let's not forget, Steve, that this is a brand new engine in these automobiles designed specifically for IMSA type racing. In Europe, the automobiles run with larger twin turbo versions of this power plant. To run here, they run with a single turbo engine, and right now they're just on the verge of development. So I think we're going to see a lot more power being developed by these 962s as the season progresses.
Well, of the Chevrolet engine, such as running up front with Bill Whittington, they've had, what, since 1955, almost 30 years to get it figured out. Here's Bob Aiken in the 962. There's only 2 of these in this country, and here you see him nose to tail. The number 5 car is Aiken, and the car right behind him, blue and white, is Al Hobart trying to set him up for a pass.
It's interesting that Cyril Vandermeer also running a single turbo Porsche car, but he's got kind of a hot rod. He's running his in a March chassis, an English-built chassis, whereas these 2 automobiles are pure Porsche, both chassis and engine, right from the race shops in Zuffenhausen, just out Stuttgart in West Germany. Very exotic automobiles as well, Steve, and very expensive.
Well, with a few spares, Brock, you're talking about an investment of about $250,000 if you'd like to park a 962 in your driveway.
Well, if I did, I'll guarantee I wouldn't be driving it in the rain, Steve. I mean, this is pretty nasty weather for a $250,000 automobile.
Well, these 2 cars are as identical as German craftsmen can make them, Brock, so you've got a driver battle here between Aiken and Hobart.
Aiken doing very well. Remember, he told us earlier that he doesn't feel very experienced with ground effects automobiles, but he's sure doing a good job against Al Hobart, who is one of the very best in road racing and considered by many people to be one of the very best American drivers overall.
Well, Bob Aiken, who told us that he literally learned to drive or learned to road race here at Lime Rock, certainly feels very comfortable with the course, probably more so than he does the car. You're talking about Al Hobart. Well, you consider he won 7 IMSA races last year on his way to the points championship.
And before that, we said earlier, ran in some grand national competition very effectively, and now is moving into Indianapolis type racing. So Al Hobart, a very versatile race driver and a very steady one. He doesn't make many mistakes. We talked to him earlier, remember, and he was a little embarrassed that he went off the course here. He just doesn't do that much. He's a very sanitary, very scientific, very meticulous race driver.
His father taught him well.
He did indeed. His father, Bob Hobart, was a famous road racing driver back in the late 1950s, early 60s. Ran with the famous Carroll Shelby Cobra team in the latter years of his career. One of the best in the business, really. They both run now a Porsche dealership outside Philadelphia.
And Bob Aiken candidly admitted that he's not yet comfortable in this new car. He doesn't have that many laps in it. Al Hobart has got to be thoroughly comfortable after a beautiful 6 hours at Riverside, where he ran so close to the winning car of Whittington and Lanier. But I wonder if any driver could be totally comfortable in these kinds of conditions. Brock had a chance earlier to ask Al Hobart, Al, is it more difficult in the wet than in the dry to pass?
Well, no doubt. And it's nasty. The fact is, you know, when you get into wet weather, you lose about 50% of your cornering ability and about 70% of your braking, or you have about 70% of your braking ability, and you have about 90% of your acceleration. So our forte is cornering. So you can see right away we come up with a shorthand. And visibility-wise, creature comfort-wise, we're probably a little better off. And when it all comes out in the wash, so to speak, it's going to be the guy that has the torque, and that looks like the Chevrolet.
50% of your cornering capabilities is lost. Well, here's a man already having problems cornering. That is number 61, Brett O'Neill, and he is off mowing the grass, but appears to be trying to get back into it, Brock.
Yeah, he's got his little Argo with a Ford-powered automobile. It's actually a larger displacement version of the Formula One Ford Cosworth, Steve. About 4 liters, He got it off in the grass, though, and boy, lost all his traction. As we see, Bill Whittington still holding on to that lead as he runs through some traffic and bounces along there on the curbing. But Whittington doing an awful good job with a big, strong automobile. And you know, when that automobile is making probably about 600, 650 horsepower in these conditions. And remember what Al Holbert said, Steve? Everything is gone in the rain. You lose your braking, you lose your cornering power, and you lose your acceleration. So it takes a lot of sensitivity as we see him now moving up on Al Holbert, and he's going to take him down the hill.
Well, maybe not, Brock. He has the horsepower to take him, but just didn't simply have the room to get it done safely.
Well, Holbert holds him off down the front straightaway, and Bill Whittington looks as if he's going to try to outbrake him and dive underneath as they head into turn one. But look at that. Holbert just shuts the door on Whittington.
Well, the last thing Holbert wants to do is go a lap down, and that 57 car gets around him. That's exactly the position he'll be in. Here, coming into the pit area is the fellow we saw slide off the racetrack a lap or so back, number 61, Brent O'Neill.
Well, he's probably done some damage to the bodywork. Yes, he has. And look at that. A new nose comes out, a fiberglass nose. They're going to yank off the front of that little Argo and snap a new hood on, Steve. Not bad.
Just like an old snap-together model, Brock, you used to build when you were a kid.
If only your local body man to do that kind of work for you. Yeah, they're not going to do it. They say, no, we're going to let you go, Brent, and see how it works with that old bent-up bodywork.
Well, the left front fender particularly is just flapping in the breeze. He may be back.
Very possible, Steve. Don't forget the bodywork in this kind of racing car serves as the ground effect. So if that's flopping around, it's going to hurt him. As we see the Whittington-Holbert battle carry on. They're diving around one of the slower cars, that older automobile, the original GTP car, now falling way back as Whittington and Holbert go at it down the hill.
Well, if Whittington runs according to his previous strategy, he'll wait for the front straightaway before he tries to get around Al Holbert. Let's see if indeed he does.
Well, he tried it the last time and failed, but now he's got a line on him, and it may be that it'll work this time. Yes, it does. Underneath him, but look at this. Vandermeer behind Holbert as well trying to get through. He couldn't get through, so now we've got Whittington out front with Vandermeer in second, but in between them, a lap down, is Al Holbert. Kemper Miller third, Randy Lanier fourth. We'll be back from Lime Rock.
Yates and Ed Bruce, who's out in California. We'll be visiting with Ed from time to time, but right now Cyril Vandermeer, who's running in the second spot. Moments ago, he too got around Al Holbert and now has yet another lap car between himself and the leader, Bill Whittington. That's the number 5 Porsche 962 of Bob Aiken. That is Vandermeer's next target. He's got to get around him before he can make any ground on the leader.
You know, Steve, this racetrack's almost like an oval track, almost like a short track. It's all corners, and yet it's very quick, so that it's almost like these guys are running on an oval, even though they're doing some right turns out here. But you're always in traffic, and you're always maneuvering, and if you get behind a little bit, as it happens in a short track race, when the leader jumps out and you get some traffic in between you, boy, you got some problems. As we see Kemper Miller, he's still riding in third place with that Chevy-powered March of his. He's trying to get past Brent O'Neill that we saw earlier with that bodywork problem. And look at Kemper Miller come down in that red and white March on the outside. Look at him blow down that straightaway. Boy, it doesn't seem like he's lost 50% of his acceleration, Steve, in this rain, like Al Holbert said.
Nor Randy Lanier, who's currently running fourth right behind him. But coming back into the pit area, as we suspected, is Brent O'Neill, car number 61. You'll remember earlier he spun it off of the racetrack. They brought it in. We're going to put a front end on it. Elected not to, sent him out. And I think after watching that car flapping around out there, they've decided the safe thing to do is to try to put some new fiberglass on, even though it's going to be time-consuming.
Yeah, they probably don't have any choice. It was coming progressively more loose and looked as if it was probably going to come off. It may have been that the IMSA stewards called him in. Maybe they were concerned about it. But as we see Kemper Miller once again out there with Randy Lanier right on his tail. Boy, Lanier has really made a comeback. Remember, Steve, he started on the outside of the front row, went way to the back with that black flag, and now has worked his way up to a point where he's going to challenge Kemper Miller for third place.
And an interesting contest, too, Brock, because these are both Chevrolet-powered Marches.
Sure are. Basically identical cars except for the paint jobs, as we see Randy Lanier in that number 56 dive underneath Kemper Miller into turn number 1 and take third place. Wow, what a comeback for Randy Lanier, Steve.
And to have two cars that run as well as the Blue Thunder machines, Brock, that has really got some eyebrows raised, some a little quizzically. I think it's more envy than anything else, because you can bet when cars are performing like this that the IMSA officials scrutinized every inch of them. They got to be legal. There's no way around it.
And, of course, the surprise has been the driving skill of this young man, Randy Lanier, who's not very experienced.
Well, literally came out of nowhere, Brock. So as Randy Lanier and Bill Whittington have Cyril Vandermeer sandwiched between them, let's go back out to California for some bench racing with Ed Bruce and Jim Busby.
Thanks, Steve. It looks like it's starting to get exciting up there. Jim, as a very successful world-class driver, I know you've driven Lime Rock. What's that course like?
Well, it's one of those circuits that, unlike where we're at Riverside here, is a little bit shorter, depending on which circuit you use at Riverside. However, it's extremely difficult, and I think it's one of those circuits that tends to separate the men from the boys.
Very tight course.
Oh yeah, it's real twisty, and it's an unusual course in that it's one of the few courses in America where you leave the ground. And boy, do you leave the ground.
Tell us about it.
There's a hump coming up over a rise out of the back section where these cars get airborne to the point where you'd think you were at the drag races watching burnouts with funny cars.
What speed are we talking about at this point?
Well, it looks like and feels like you're running about 250 like a funny. But what's really going on is you're running about 90 over a rise, and the front end starts to fly. You catch a little air underneath her, and boy, you just go straight up on the tailpipe.
Little rat in the teeth.
Oh, absolutely.
Jim, thanks. We'll be back later. Back to Lime Rock and Brock and Steve.
Thanks, Ed. As the rain continues to hammer down here in Lime Rock, we see Whitney Gans in that little Buick V6 powered Argo negotiating turn one. He is currently battling with Bob Aiken and Al Hobart for 5th place, and a lot of traffic out here. Nobody ever seems to really get free of traffic here at Lime Rock, Steve.
No, they don't. As Jim Busby was saying, it's a very tight, demanding course, physically on the driver and the race car. But Whitney's got to be awful proud of just leading those two new 962s. To stay ahead of him, pretty good accomplishment.
Well, he's a very good young driver, got a big future ahead of him, and that little race car has got a big future as well. That's not turbocharged, by the way. That's a normally aspirated V6 Buick, and it's shown a lot of power, surprising. But, of course, it's light, and that is a big key, and I'm sure it's very helpful here in a very rainy racetrack like we've got today.
Jim Busby was talking about the cars actually getting daylight when they crest that hill on the backside of the course. We're not really seeing that today, Brock, because the speed is reduced due to the weather.
That's right. The lap times are down considerably. As Al Hobart said, everything slows down. Braking, acceleration, and cornering power. But those three guys are really going at it. Aiken tried to squeeze underneath Whitney, but couldn't quite do it. Whitney shut the door on him. But we've seen so many passes with guys coming down that front straightaway here at Lime Rock and squeezing in underneath somebody, but it didn't work that time for Aiken.
Well, Aiken's 962 does not seem to be quite as stable out there as its counterpart, the 14 car of Al Hobart. A little bit twitchy. That might be Aiken, who told us earlier he wasn't totally comfortable. Coming into the pit area again is the home-built Phoenix car of John Gunn. He was the first to pit in this race when they had left the cover on the injectors, Brock.
He sure was, and looks like maybe John's in for a little longer stop this time as his crew chief takes a peek inside the cockpit and has a little consultation with John. Hard to tell what the problem is, but you can see the engine stopped, the windshield wipers stopped, and that implies all the power shut off. As we go back to racing action with Whitney Gans and the two 962s, Aiken and Hobart, they're just having at it out here.
He's still holding them off. If anything, maybe extending his lead a bit.
You know, a lot of people may wonder, as we see John Gunn get back underway, Steve, a lot of people may wonder why you have racing in the rain with sports cars. In stock car racing, drag racing, speedway, Indy type racing, they quit when it rains. Not so in road racing. That's the European tradition. They always have raced in the rain, no matter what. Rain or shine, they run. And it develops a whole different kind of driving style. And it may be that because so much of American racing over the years has been on dirt tracks, you obviously couldn't race in the rain on dirt. You'd just turn into a muddy mire. Whereas in Europe, ever since the beginning, they raced on paved roads, and it was just a tradition to run in the rain. It wasn't affected. Pavement wasn't affected like it was on a dirt track in the United States, so the traditions have just been different.
Al Hobart gets around Bob Aiken, squeezes between he and Whitney Gans, and is now trying to figure out a way around Gans. But Gans is dealing with some lap traffic himself. Everybody seems to have their own particular problem out there. You were talking about running in the rain, Brock. In the early 70s, I saw the only Indianapolis car race ever run in the rain, and Mario Andretti hit the same tree twice, and that's when they stopped doing it.
Yeah, well, it's all a question of tires, of course. If you do have the right kind of rubber, look at this. as we see Al Holbert dive around the outside of Whitney Gans to take over fifth spot. What a move by Al Holbert. Boy, I'll tell you what, he's got that car working right now, because that was a very, very deft move to take Whitney Gans on the outside.
He maybe could have done it earlier, Brock. I just think patience is the byword out there right now. Be patient, don't make a mistake, and don't cause an incident.
Well, that certainly is Holbert's forte, because he's a very smooth driver. He seldom makes mistakes on a racetrack. As he now starts to open up a little bit on Whitney Gans, and Bob Aiken's got to be saying, uh-oh, I don't want Al Holbert to get any kind of distance on me, so he may be trying to put a move on Whitney right now. But Whitney's been pretty persistent in that little Argo.
Well, Aiken had the best seat in the house to watch how it was done by the master Al Holbert. All he's got to do is try to duplicate that feat, get around Whitney Gans.
Well, now remember, Al did it on the outside, so let's see how Bob Aiken does it. No, he's going to try the inside line. Hard braking, and he gets inside of Whitney Gans down into turn one, so he has himself sixth place, and his sights on Al Holbert back in fifth. Bill Whittington still leads it, Cyril Vandermeer in second. We'll be back at Lime Rock after this.
Going on for the lead, car number 57, Bill Whittington, the Chevy-powered March, has the lead just a few car lengths back. He has moved up dramatically in the last few laps. That is the Porsche-powered March of South African Cyril Vandermeer. So Vandermeer, who had dropped way back, Whittington appeared to have a comfortable lead, and now all of a sudden that has all changed. And Whittington's lap times have not changed. Vandermeer's have just gotten a good deal quicker. A lot of people said these Chevy cars would not be competitive in the rain with a very torquey, low-end horsepower, but Whittington has proven them wrong. It's amazing how well the Whittington and Lanier team cars work with the Chevrolet married to the March chassis. Brock Yates earlier asked Bill Whittington how they happened to come up with this particular engine-chassis combination.
We had a choice early on this year, and we thought that we had a choice to go with a Porsche-powered plant, turbo-powered plant, and after the Marches ran so good, and we just drove them a limited time last year, I really felt the reliability would be here on the thing. You know, it's basically a Can-Am car, so really it's just running real good.
This racetrack, the bumps bothering the car at all?
Well, we softened it up quite a bit, but not it. If there was ever a racetrack really made for, a March, this would be it, really. And
is that right?
And a Chevrolet, the torque range in a Chevy right now with no, it's fuel injected, and we're running at 50, well, from 48 to about 58 in that torque range a lot, so it's just really good for power.
How about up on the backside here in this little uphill where some of the guys are getting off the ground? Are you guys doing any wheel stands up there or not?
Randy earlier pulled a little bit of a wheelie up there, but he found a fast way just to feather it on top a little bit, get it back on the ground. It's kind of like motocross at that point.
Well, all of those comments, bear in mind, were made after qualifying on a dry racetrack, so we'll have to see how it works out here after all.
Well, look at this. Vandermeer right on Bill Whittington's bumper as they run out of the S's. Boy, I'll tell you, Vandermeer is just not giving up at all. Bill Whittington, interesting man, Steve. Races airplanes, got a couple of really big, powerful Mustangs and World War II fighters that he races with his brother, Don Whittington, and his younger brother, Dale, a very good race driver as well. They've all had some Indianapolis experience and won Le Mans a number of years ago. So these guys are real pros.
He mentioned motocross, and I can tell you I've seen them. They're all three good dirt bike riders, too.
They just stand on the gas no matter what they do. Pure racers, the three Whittington brothers, and really colorful guys as well.
Well, right on Bill's tail is a South African, also a March car, but it has got Porsche for power, as you can see the flame emanating from the turbocharger. The only unfortunate thing about turbocharging is you have a little bit of lag coming off those corners. Not so with the normally aspirated fuel-injected Chevrolet. It responds instantly.
Well, it's responding perfectly right now for Whittington because, oh, look at this. Off into the grass, Steve. Saves it, keeps it out of the... No, he doesn't. Wow, he went way down in the trees.
Well, Whittington goes into the woods like a chainsaw. The only thing still working on that car is the windshield wiper.
Once he got on the grass, of course, with those big slicks, it was just goodbye. There was no traction whatsoever. It looked like he tried to save it for a second, but no way. And he just sailed into that thicket there, and I would think he's probably going to be there for a while. As the new leader, Cyril Vandermeer, has got himself a clear racetrack.
Well, from the sound of crunching lumber, I doubt that Bill Whittington's going to be re-entering this race. Right now, Cyril Vandermeer has got to concern himself, though, with another one of those Blue Thunder cars that's back there in second place, Randy Lanier.
So as Cyril Vandermeer comes down into turn 1, pretty quickly, Bill Whittington's going to come into sight for him. He's going to be able to get a look at his old rival. And there he is, Whittington crawling out of that march. I think he's in good shape. He doesn't look like he's hurt at all, but not so with a race car. I'm sure that that's got some real bent suspension and probably some crunch bodywork over there too, Steve.
I don't think Whittington's going to like what he sees on the left-hand side of that car, as the woods here at Lime Rock have left their mark on the 57 car.
Really too bad, Steve, because that automobile was really behaving well in the rain here at Lime Rock. Just for a moment there, off into the weeds, and that puts Cyril Vandermeer out into the lead with Randy Lanier, Whittington's teammate, hard on his tail. Kemper Miller in third, Al Hobart up into fourth, Bob Aiken fifth.
Number 25, driven by Kemper Miller, had fallen back to fourth, but Brock Yates, he's now into third again after Bill Whittington took that detour into the woods.
And doing a good job as well, because he's got some pretty serious competition around him. And Kemper Miller has not had a whole lot of experience in these big displacement sports cars, but he's putting himself very well today.
Well, I should point also, Brock, that he is a lap down. The only two cars on the lead lap are the first and second machines, and that is Cyril Vandermeer and Randy Lanier.
Well, Kemper Miller has got to hope that maybe some misfortune befalls Lanier and Vandermeer, because he's gotten all the way up to third, but not really running as quickly as the leaders, because this man right now is probably the fastest on the racetrack. That's Randy Lanier, who's carrying the honors now for the Blue Thunder Racing Team, having lost his teammate Bill Whittington. And the pressure is surely on Lanier, because he saw, of course, how easy it was to lose control and go off into the weeds as his teammate did. So Randy is very definitely paying attention and driving much more conservatively than this man, Steve.
And this hurts Bill Whittington more than just his pride in the race car. He comes into this race as the series leader, and as he told me earlier, he wanted to go out and make some points. Even if it wasn't for the win, he wanted points to add to that accumulation. He's not going to get any today. Let's take a look again at Bill Whittington, the 57 car, just ahead of Cyril Vandermeer, as he gets into trouble on this very slick racetrack.
Well, I'm sure he just got on the throttle a little bit too hard, broke traction on those big, wide rear wheels, and the car just kind of pointed itself off the racetrack, got down there in that very, very slippery grass. You can see right there that he's got the brakes on. The rear wheels are stopped, but even at that, the car just continues to skate across that grass.
Then Whittington tried to use the throttle here, Brock, to come to his aid, and even that wasn't enough. He tried to apply some horsepower to get a drive out of those woods. Not to be. He's in there chopping some kindling.
But now the car is moving again. Actually underway. It'd be interesting to see how much chassis and body damage was done, though, in that little off-course excursion, Steve.
Well, I would say that he's saving the tow trip, Brock. He's just going to take it back to the pitter. I can't imagine he wouldn't. Al Hobart currently running fourth in the 962 Porsche, and as the attrition rate starts to become a factor here, who knows? Hobart could still be in this thing.
Absolutely right. You can never count Hobart out. In the meantime, though, let's go out to Riverside, California with Ed Bruce and Jim Busby.
Okay, Brock, thanks. I'm still here with Jim Busby, and Jim is currently here with his work mule, he calls it, doing tire and engine tests at Riverside. Jim, you are from the Southern California area. Over the years in following motorsports, I know there have been a lot of really top drivers, world-class drivers, world champions from the Southern California area. Why? Is there a reason?
You know, it's difficult to pinpoint any one reason. I think that probably racing in general, be it the roots of drag racing on through sports car racing, for some reason grew out of California, whether or not it's weather conditions, an aggressive lifestyle, more leisure time, I really can't tell you. I think probably the affluence level in Southern California and the interest in the automobile right after the war probably triggered the growth of most of motorsports, and this is where the country got well the soonest, and I think that probably what kicked it off.
Well, I think everybody is pretty much aware of the mythical relationship of the Californian and the car. Of course, they can do it pretty much year-round, too.
Absolutely. In fact, that's why we're here now, isn't it? I mean, we know if we come here, we can test, we can race, and the weather generally stays pretty darn good. So that also is an advantage.
Jim, thanks for talking to us. And continued good luck in that point championship.
Thanks a lot.
Back to Lime Rock and Brock and Steve.
Okay, Ed and Jim Busby, thanks very much. The second car in your picture right here is an interesting machine. Gianpiero Moretti in a Cosworth Momo. It's really a brand, a label of a car that Moretti owns, and he is currently going after Bob Aiken in the 962 Porsche.
And that's a race for 5th place, Steve. You know, Moretti's car is kind of interesting. It's carrying a Formula One Ford Cosworth engine that's been punched out from 3 liters out to 4.2 liters. That's about 240 cubic inches. A little bit smaller than the Chevy, but quite a bit bigger in displacement than Aiken's turbo Porsche.
Moretti still calls Milan, Italy his home, but he spends an awful lot of time in the United States, not only IMSA racing, but also doing business as he imports steering wheels and road wheels under that same name of Momo. About the only thing the Chevrolet and the Cosworth V8 have in common is just that, the configuration of a V8. The Cosworth, far more sophisticated, originally designed as a racing engine, and has proved its worth on racetracks all over this world. Truly an interesting man and a fascinating automobile. Brock Yates had a chance earlier to catch up with Gianpiero in much more relaxing circumstances than he's facing right now.
How was Gianpiero Moretti, who established a fine name for himself in IMSA GT racing 2 seasons ago, and then went off to Europe for a year and has now returned with a brand new automobile, and it seems to be running very well, Gianpiero.
Yes, we have built this car in winter in Italy, and we have used a Cosworth engine. The car is very light, very small, so very good handling. It's not fast like the other car, but in long races we can do good results, and we can have good results.
For a racetrack like Lime Rock, which is very short, rather bumpy, how is the car behaving here?
The car was very good for the racetrack because it's not an easy racetrack, this one. It's for bumping, very fast corners. Still a very small racetrack, but very fast corner. The only thing, I don't have enough power to compete with the other 3-4 cars that they are in front of me. But if somebody breaks something, I believe I can do a good race.
A very personable guy, Brock, very popular on this IMSA circuit. Nice man. And look at this. Boy, was I ever wrong about Bill Whittington. He was not headed back to the pits. Apparently the car handles fine, and he's right on the bumper of Al Holbert.
He sure is. Look at this. Holbert in 4th place. Unfortunately, Whittington is way down. He's got himself a bunch of laps to make up. He's back in 10th place, but that has not dampened his enthusiasm in any way. Down the front straightaway, and look at Whittington go with that beat-up whole march. Just sails past Al Holbert and takes him as they go down into turn 1.
Holbert has got to believe that he's seeing a mirage here, Brock. In fact, I think I am. Boy, does that speak highly for the durability of these March cars.
It sure does. I really would have guessed that Whittington was through for the day when we saw him go out there into the weeds and knock down a few saplings and small trees, but didn't hurt that car a bit. Uh-oh, same place, Kemper Miller, off the racetrack in almost an identical location where Whittington went off. He didn't get into the trees, but it looks like the car is stalled. Wrong again, Steve. These guys won't quit. He just powers his way back out into the racetrack. A little bit of mud underneath his march, but looks like he may be getting underway as well with no problem.
Well, that's all that corner needed, was a little bit of mud to make it even slicker. The South African Cyril Vandermeer continues to lead here at Lime Rock, the IMSA GTP Challenge.
Of South Africa, the lead, the Lime Rock, Connecticut IMSA GTP Challenge in his March Porsche. The current leader, unchallenged at this particular moment, Steve Evans, after we saw that spectacular spin of Bill Whittington's and then his recovery to come back and race again.
I'm still a little stunned by all of that. But Cyril Vandermeer knows better than anybody that on a rain-slick racetrack like this, your fortunes can turn on you just instantaneously. You know, we talked about Bill Whittington owning his own racetrack in Atlanta. Well, Cyril, not to take a back seat, owns his own circuit in South Africa.
I just wonder whether it ever rains as hard there as it's doing right now in Lime Rock, as Vandermeer has himself a nice cushion, but still working very hard in this low visibility situation. The windshield washer and wiper working hard. Now look at this. You can see his hand working to keep the mist off the inside of that windshield. So the defroster may not be working too well in there, Steve.
Well, it's a good thing he's got a rag to accomplish that with. They were thinking ahead. They knew the problems they were going to encounter here in this kind of a climactic nightmare.
We earlier heard Bill Whittington talk about the fact that there is a small defroster effect in these automobiles, but it can't be anything like you'd find in a normal road car. So he's probably got some visibility problems in there. And as we said earlier, just one little mistake, a brake locking up or something, can give you all kinds of trouble here and put you off into the grass. So as we see there, Randy Lanier, second place, the Blue Thunder team. Coming back hard, Steve. They won't give up.
He's the only car on the same lap with the leader, Cyril Vandermeer.
Well, that number 56 car, we saw that automobile win at Riverside in a 6-hour race earlier in the year, and it could do it again now.
Well, Randy Lanier has certainly got all of U.S. road racing talking about his Blue Thunder effort. His co-driver, Bill Whittington, leading the series. Earlier, Brock had a chance to talk to Randy about the two-car team.
Tell me the difference between the two race cars.
Well, one's an 84 G March, one's an 83, but we converted the 83 to the 84 specs, and basically about the only difference is the deck lid for the engine cover, and other than that, they're both pretty much the same.
Well, they perform identically out on the racetrack. It's hard to tell one from the other than the number on the car. Cyril Vandermeer, car 00, can see out in front of him Randy Lanier, who was on that same lap. He hopes he continues to see him, Brock. If he does it, that means Lanier is picking him up.
Well, he's going to probably just try to... Oh, here's trouble. Bob Aiken in that beautiful 962 Porsche has put it into the fence, and look at the front end, just torn off that car. As he pulls the race car back onto the track, and he's going to try to struggle back around to the pits and make a repair.
Well, certainly not as fortunate as Bill Whittington, because that car is just severely damaged. A very expensive encounter with the Armco for Bob Aiken.
Oh, that's too bad. He got both the front and the back, so he must have done a big loop. As look at this rain come down.
And here's the leader, 00, Cyril Vandermeer. Continue to truck around this Lime Rock 1.53-mile course, and the only real threat he's got now is Randy Lanier.
Right, Steve, because the automobile directly in front of him is Kemper Miller's. He's way back in 6th place. So essentially unchallenged right now is Cyril Vandermeer. All he has to do is stay out of trouble, not mix it up with any of the slower cars, and not put that car off the racetrack, as happened to Bill Whittington. We saw the price he paid, we saw the price Kemper Miller paid, and we saw the price that Bob Aiken paid with that wrecked 962 Porsche. Don't make any mistakes, Cyril. We'll be back with more for the Lime Rock IMSA GTP Challenge after this message.
The IMSA GTP Challenge. You heard the old expression, walking on eggs? Well, that is exactly what the leader, Cyril Vandermeer of South Africa, is doing right now in the blue and white 00 car. He has only one other car on the same lap with him. That is Randy Lanier, car 56. But he has a big enough lead over Lanier that if he doesn't make a mistake, if he doesn't crack one of those eggs, if he takes his time getting around the lap traffic, he's got a very good chance to win this race and a lot of valuable points on the IMSA circuit. This slippery racetrack, though, has gotten the best of more than one driver, and certainly the most severely damaged car has got to be the 962 Porsche of Bob Aiken. Brock Yates is down in the pit area with Bob in his damaged race car.
Obviously off the old racetrack on the wet.
Well, I didn't do anything different. I was going down the backstretch, and all of a sudden it just went right out from under me. I have absolutely no idea what happened. And then just once it takes off in this weather, there's no collecting it. I just bumped along the guardrail a couple of places. In fact, I got it going, but brought it back, but there's no way we're going to fix it.
Well, we're sorry. The conditions are about as bad as they could get, I would think.
Yeah, I really question whether they should run races for these cars in conditions like this. But, we come here to race, so I guess if they're going to start the race, we're all going to be crazy enough to run in it, but it's kind of a shame.
Well, we're sorry you're out. I know we will see you back soon, and that 962, and it'll be much more competitive in the future.
Well, we're getting the hang of it. Actually, I sort of had it figured out pretty well. I was able to keep up with Al Holbert, and I thought, well, if I can keep up with Al, that's not bad for a beginner, and so we'll be at Mid-Ohio, and I'm sure it'll be better there.
Good. Well, better luck. We'll see you shortly on our same circuit.
Thanks, Brock.
Thanks, Bob.
A true sportsman, Bob Aiken, and if he had to do it over again, even knowing the results, I guarantee you he'd be racing in the rain again. Leading this race in the rain is Cyril Vandermeer from South Africa in a car that was scheduled originally to be shipped back to South Africa as just a display piece. They had a brand new March. Unfortunately, they burned it to the ground at Atlanta testing and had to rescue that car from the airport on the 747. Randy Lanier, the only car on the same lap with Vandermeer, car number 56. But Brock Yates, I don't think we're going to see Randy taking any chances either. A good second place finish, he'll take it with all the problems he had at the start.
Right, Steve, and you got to know that Lanier is going to spend some time thinking about that mistake he made at the start that got him the black flag, that lost him a whole bunch of time, because he might be in the lead at this particular moment had it not been for that little problem there. But he sure has done a good job so far. Worked his way right back through the field, and we said it earlier, and it's worth saying again, Randy Lanier is not an experienced driver in the same league with a man like Holbert or his teammate Bill Whittington as he runs down Whitney Gans in that little Argo down the front straightaway. But boy, he sure shows a lot of poise.
Well, Lanier was first viewed by the competition as one of those car owners in the long races. You let him drive for a while, right? Then you put a Whittington back in and win the race. He has progressed so fast that no one's taking him lightly now, not at all.
No, because we saw him at Riverside run just as hard as Whittington when they had that terrific duel with the Porsche Derek Bell and Al Holbert. As we see Cyril Vandermeer tiptoeing around the Lime Rock racetrack, which isn't any drier than it was when the race started, just pouring down rain. I don't think I've ever seen a race ever run in this much rain, Steve. It just hasn't quit at all.
Cyril Vandermeer is on the last lap, Brock. Only about 3/4 of a mile now separates him from the checkered flag, his second of the year in IMSA racing, the first, of course, coming at Daytona.
Notice the brake lights go on there. He just kind of eased it into that little turn. Now he heads down that very tricky downhill right-hander, which has been a source of a lot of problems for race drivers over the years. Now down onto the front straightaway, and here he comes. The flag is out. The checkered comes out. Cyril Vandermeer wins here at Lime Rock in abominable conditions. A terrific drive for the South African.
Well, his rally driving experience had to pay off today, Brock. He was just a study in concentration. Cyril Vandermeer conquers the 1 hour at Lime Rock. For South African, Cyril Vandermeer has triumphed in this 100-mile race. The 00 car winning it. Randy Lanier in second spot. Al Holbert with the Porsche, number 14 third. Jean-Pierre